Henry, who's on from the town?
Nikki Sharif.
Nikki, what?
Sharif.
Hi, it's Nikki Sharp. I just renamed myself so you can see it.
Hi, Nikki. I'm Lee, and I'm taking minutes, which is why I'm asking.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, I have 3:13 and I'll call the meeting to order. I'll fill in for Mary if I can. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Town Area Plan Work Group is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will or will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the Town Area Plan Work Group is convening by a video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join for Zoom meetings. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you may broadcast may be captured by the recording. And that's enough of that. Okay, establishment of a quorum. Lee.
Here.
Mickey.
Here.
Allison.
Here.
Reagan.
Here.
I'm here. Marcia emailed she was not going to be here, and Mary did. And I don't see any Mary Ann. So, okay, that takes care of that. Approval of the agenda. If I can find it. Any changes, additions? Any comment? Okay, all in favor? Oh, I think we do a roll call after that. All right, Lee.
Aye.
Mickey.
Aye.
Allison.
Aye.
Reagan.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. So we got an agenda. Approval of the draft minutes from March 5th, 2024. Any discussion? Okay, motion to approve. Lee.
Okay. I
Okay.
wrote them. That's I normally sit on my hand, but that's okay.
That's
Lee
all right.
moves.
Is there a
Who's-
second?
I'll second.
Mickey seconds. Okay. All in favor, Lee,
Aye.
Mickey,
Aye.
Allison,
Aye.
Reagan,
Aye.
and I am also an aye. Okay, that's out of the way. Okay. We have circulation up for discussion. Did everybody get a chance to look through it?
Mhm.
I take that as a yes. Okay. Lee, you want to open it up?
Yes. What you have before you is, well, frankly, it's not a startling document because it reflects conversations that we've been having off and on for quite a while in the work group. And then 2 meetings between Mary Longacre and me that led to something on paper. In some respects, the long-range transportation plan sets the scene for a lot of things that we had put into the survey. I don't know if you remember, but we actually had a survey in which we asked people what would they like to see done in certain intersections. Now, we have not published the survey, so I'm not going to refer to it in the minutes, but I will let you know that the long-range transportation plan has a list of projects in the first couple of appendices that take up most of what we believe should happen within the town area. Henry, at some point, I am going to share the screen, but for the moment, I like the idea of people being able to jump in if they can. The one thing the long-range plan, transportation plan, LRTP, did not do was discuss Gardner Street or Gardner Street alternatives. If one were to ask Mike Burns what they had thought about, he said, well, you know, we even thought about a super roundabout involving one-way streets on Gardner and New Lane and parts of Cliff Road that would open things up. And he said, whenever I mentioned it, I didn't get a lot of enthusiasm. In fact, reaction was entirely negative. If you recall, such a scheme has been proposed for Pleasant Street, Sparks, Atlantic, and Williams. And that is at least going through to a public hearing, which will be later in the spring. Again, I think the reaction has been, no, we don't want to cause a lot of traffic piling up in front of people's houses, particularly on Atlantic Avenue and portions of Pleasant Street, so that there will probably need to be some kind of negotiation with the owner of 57 Pleasant Street. That's the place with all the trees. But that goes beyond this report. But I'm adding that in so that people don't have to raise their hand and say, what about? We did talk about driving on the sidewalk, during which several people said, I hate high curbs because they knock me off my bicycle. And so we put some of that into our report. There is no sentiment for or against traditional, well, there is a sentiment for traditional curbs, and that any that are displaced should be replaced at a reasonable height. The idea of driving on the sidewalk so as to get around parked cars was taken up as long ago as 2003. And that report is appended. Apparently, the three people who wrote the report went around with a tape measure. And if the street was less than 19 feet wide, they said, well, this is a candidate for parking on the sidewalk. I added that if we're going to enforce parking or no parking, then we need some kind of permission from the state, because at the moment the state says it's illegal to park on the sidewalks. And so it simply says, it doesn't say home rule petition, which I did think would be the way to ask the state, but it simply says engage the state. Now, there are several issues in which I need input. And so, Henry, what I'm proposing is that if you'll let me share the screen, I'll put it up and we'll go paragraph by paragraph very quickly. And let's see if I'm allowed to do this. There we go. And if this is the one that says that it's because I've opened up the review panel. And so track changes should show up. So the first is the introduction. The second is the road network. And here we go. And a reference to the long-range transportation plan. And I say explicitly, we endorse every item of this list that is within the town area. Does not include a plan for alleviating congestion on Gardner Street. And so some of the things that we talked about, like moving utility poles or putting utilities underground, are listed, not endorsed, but at least somebody will get a sense that we looked at it. Sidewalk and pedestrian safety. I'm trying to recall, but I think it was Marcia Fader who said, you know, I live in that area, and if I'm walking on one of these streets, I fear for, well, not my life, at least my well-being, because somebody might come tearing down the road with one wheel on the sidewalk. So it is an issue. Now, parking. Just on a casual note, we fly to London tomorrow, where the congestion charge is 15 pounds a day, from something like 7:30 in the morning to 6:30 at night. And they have magic cameras, English, they call them number plates, but they're uniform in size and the letters are uniform in size. Coloring is the same. So the digital cameras pick up the car very quickly. And so there is a congestion zone. But I'm not recommending a congestion zone. I'm just thinking that we should not be making it any easier to park downtown. Mary, I know she didn't like my suggestion. She said, well, there are other things to consider. So let me give you these bullet points, which after we're done should be coalesced into one statement. For example, the last one, Harbor Place is outside of the town area. Thus, we should not make a recommendation on a parking structure because we have no, what am I trying to say? We have no mandate to discuss that. That's Mary's viewpoint. I think that a parking structure is so significant in terms of town's capital costs and what it might do to traffic in the area that I'm willing to say we should not have one. That would be the first bullet point. The in-between bullet points go for parking structures at 4 fairgrounds, possibly even out at the airport or in the industrial zone alongside the airport, Washington Street, Silver Street. And if enough people think we really need a parking structure downtown, I've got a bullet point for that one too. I hope that doesn't survive, but that's me. Now, back to London. When I was a graduate student, the planners, the transportation planners, were considering what they called the London Orbital. It would be a high-speed ring road around London, which now is known as the M25. It was to be dual carriageway, that's the English term for 4-lane highway. And it would be 50 or 60 miles long, and it would connect all the ends of all the motorways that spread out: M1 North, M4 West, M3 South, M2 to the ports and so forth. Today, it's a parking lot, and in places, it's 6 lanes in each direction. If you build it, they will come. And it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. Okay. Henry, I'm going to shut this down momentarily. I hit the wrong button. There we go.
There you go.
So that's the first one that needs discussion. There is a second item a little further down. Reactions.
Well, I agree with you about not having a parking structure in town. That's come up in the past.
There is sort of the parking in the old building right now that's downtown, right? The valet.
The valet, yes, that is
Right.
the old
Power
generating
station.
station. It's the old generating station. And Henry will remember well. But when I first arrived here, on a still night, you could hear that diesel generator chugging away. And that was a good sound. It's when it quit chugging that you knew you didn't have any power. And so responding to the comment, there is a consideration for a plan to rehab Harbor Place, formerly Wilkes Square. And because of the multiple ownership, it's going to take a lot of collaboration. And we're not quite sure what they would propose if a parking structure is recommended, how it would fit in with whatever development they want.
They also need state approval. That was built with Title 90.
Okay. So,
Just for
not only,
clarification,
hi,
is our-
Reagan, go ahead.
sorry, is our role to react to the plan and give our opinions as a committee?
When you say the plan, Reagan, do you mean the long-range transportation plan?
Yeah,
Possibly, because it does recommend a parking structure.
so as a committee, we are, according to this conversation, saying our reaction to that plan is that we should not have a parking structure in the downtown area. Right?
That's certainly my point of view.
Okay, all right, great. Just want to make sure I was clear.
We're here to go over the circulation for the small area plan. I don't see anything wrong with putting comments in, but
yeah,
we'll review this once this is all done and we've hashed it out. We'll go over everything again, 1 through 9, and then
okay.
hopefully turn it over to Plus.
So if I were to edit those 5 bullets to the town area plan work group does not endorse a parking structure in town center, either in our area, Washington Street or Silver Street, or in the downtown, but consideration might be given to building one outside of 4 Fairgrounds or by the airport.
Does that, so would you include Silver Street, that lot there? That's.
Yes, that definitely in our area.
No, it is. But I'm saying, are you saying that, are we suggesting that should have a structure or it should be outside of our, we should?
I think I'm saying it should be outside. The consideration is 200 parking places. I think that's the number. Help me out. It may be 150, it may be 200 for the proposed structure. With circulation, it could be as many as 600 to 800 cars trying to get in there on a daily basis.
Right. I mean, I do think Silver Street's parking lot could do with a little attention.
Without question.
Saying as it flooded that gentleman's mother's house. And it could, and I'm just remembering as I drive by, it might not be a place where we want a 3-story car park, but we could maybe have a 2. But having 800 cars, 600, whatever the number you said, that would not work in that area just because we have enough trouble not having potholes with the current number of cars that drive down that street. There's a fairly bad one right on the curve. Okay, thank you. I wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
From my thinking, Silver Street is just not a viable location for a big parking structure. Just because it's in the old historic district, and it's unimaginable to put a big, huge building on that lot
Agreed.
that would fit into the neighborhood. So, and you're never gonna get 600 cars in it, no matter how big it is. For downtown, for the Harbor Place location, I can fluctuate on whether I'm in favor of that one or not, depending on what happens around the parking structure. You know, what any parking structure is gonna be sort of an eyesore, because it's gonna be a huge building, unless it's designed properly to fit into other development around it to kind of disguise it. So without a definitive plan for what's going on in Harbor Place, I don't think I can say one way or the other whether I'm in favor of a parking structure. And, you know, since Harbor Place was drawn up, and also going back to the Wilkes Square plan, the whole, you know, sea level rise issue has gotten even worse. So, you know, that area floods much more than it used to. So that's, all those plans are gonna have to be rethought to take that into account. So I
Yeah,
don't,
Mickey, I agree with you because there's no way that we're going to excavate basement and sub-basement parking levels.
no. I mean, yeah, and that was probably part of the original plan. I just don't, I don't know what they're gonna do now, because I think that whole concept needs rethinking, considering they'd have to raise the grade in that whole area about 3 or 4 feet just to make anything functional down there.
Yeah. Oh, I worked at Penn State, so the town for Penn State is State College, and parking in the commercial district was important. There was a move to keep the commercial district and not allow it to go entirely out to nearby malls and shopping precincts. The first parking structure was brutal, architecturally brutal. The second one was disguised with shops and brick facades surrounding it. So you hardly knew that there was a parking structure. But of course, that reduces capacity.
Mhm.
So I understand what Mickey is saying in terms of how it might be addressed.
Well, I think one of the compromises was that we don't talk about the Wilkes Square because, as you wrote in the last bullet, it is outside. So
Okay.
we'd sort of like all the rest of the LRTP, but not that particular piece. And then I think Mickey's point of having any sort of parking structure in the old historic district does not make a lot of sense. So
Okay.
that's my position on that one, because I think you're right, having any sort of, you could fix the lot, it would still have the same number of cars, but I can't imagine you could create a multi-story structure that would fit in with the neighborhood, and certainly not in a way that would be appropriate for that little section of Silver Street.
Agreed.
I think they will fix it up, because right now it's a construction staging zone.
Okay. What I'm hearing is Lee, edit that, get rid of the bullets, and make a short paragraph that says that additional parking, including a structure at 4 fairgrounds or against the airport or both, would be fine, but that's outside of our area. And we can merely make that as a comment. We do not recommend a parking structure on Silver Street or Washington Street. And to have one on Harbor Place would be problematic because it probably would have problems with sea level rise and compatibility with the historic downtown.
I don't think we even have to mention Wilkes Place or Harbor Place.
Okay.
Unless we want to carve it out, because I think the beginning part says we approve all the parts of the LRTP. And you said that's part of the LRTP, we could carve that out, saying, as you said, the last
I think somewhere I said all the street intersections, but not the parking structure.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Now,
Hey Lee, I have a question for you. What does the LRTP say about 5 corners, 4 corners? What is their current recommendation? regarding those intersections.
Okay, Five Corners would simply be rebuilt, but both of those would depend upon whether there's approval of a one-way scheme. So that Pleasant Street from Williams to Five Corners would be one way. Atlantic would be two-way. Sparks would be, I think, two-way, and Williams would be one-way. And then that would give enough width for a real sidewalk on Williams and a rebuild of the sidewalk or side path on Pleasant Street.
So is that their current recommendation, to make those streets one way?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
That
I don't
it-
think personally I agree with that statement, with that design solution. So I'm not sure that I would want to stand behind it in our statement unless that's outvoted, but
Yeah, it's not in the long range transportation plan. It's in a proposal for a hearing
Yeah.
later this spring.
okay. So
And
it's part of.
I suspect that Mike Burns is getting a lot of input that says no way.
Mhm.
Since I live in that area, I suddenly have a lot of knowledge. Those sprawling trees are swamp maples. I'm red maple. We call them swamp maple on Nantucket. They've had a lot of storm damage, but they're actually fairly vital. They are healthy. They don't look it, but they are healthy. On the other hand, a tree is a tree. Cut it down and replant, because that would be the proposal if we're going to put a side path along a two-way stretch of Pleasant. And by the time that happens, Priscilla and I will be too old to walk to the Stop and Shop. But right now we drive, because that last stretch you have to get out on the road.
Yeah, there's no question that area needs a sidewalk.
And it's part of the town's oh, I'm seeking for a word. Their statement of purpose is to tie the mid-island to downtown with side paths, pedestrian ways, and bicycle paths. That's part of the goal.
Mhm.
Okay. So what I'm proposing is, after this, I will, first of all, I'm going to find, here we go. Why did that slide around? I will amend this section, getting rid of the bullets, making it into a text. I'm not sure about not endorsing the recommendation, but somehow or another, I will mention that Harbor Place, Wilk Square has considered it. We're going to eliminate Washington or Silver Street. Paid parking could be built behind 4 fairgrounds, and I'll add airport. We do not endorse a paid parking structure in Harbor Place. And we will mention that this is a comment because it is outside of the town area, but traffic will affect us. Okay, now the other part, I'm trying to figure out why this isn't moving. This one is not as troublesome, but not everybody may agree, so it's worth discussing. I think that the paid parking district should extend throughout the town area. There are those who say, no, leave it alone, because if you let people have parking permits, why, when they go shopping, they'll come downtown and park on the first street that's in the parking district, but that doesn't have limitations. And frankly, that doesn't worry me all that much, because the 2-hour limits go all the way out to Gardner Street. So what it says is that the residential parking district be expanded so that uh, those of us who live in the town, which is all of us, will have to get a permit. And then that will allow us to park wherever, but it would exclude people who don't have a permit. However, permits are available from the police station on a less than annual basis, and that might help pay for waive.
Lee, what does that mean for like India Street, where many people park coming into town? They'll park in the last few spaces there. Does that mean that the people won't be able to park there unless they have a permit?
I don't think so, because that's a 2-hour zone in the summertime.
So
Oh,
anywhere
oh.
that's listed as 2 hours would still be available for anyone to park.
I think my somewhat more draconian, that is to say stricter, would be you needed to have a parking permit to park anywhere in the district. But that if you were parking on India Street, even with your permit, it would be 2 hours, at least in the summer.
So
And I have a neighbor who wants to petition the town to extend the parking district out to Back Street, because the painters and landscapers park in front of her house day in and day out because we have no limits on our street. But that's not what's driving me. It's my statement that we accept parking, but we're not going to make it really easy. We're going to ask people to come up with alternatives: walking, bicycles, wave the bus. I think, if you don't mind, the rest of it is non controversial. Whoops.
Hello, this is Mary Ann.
Hello, Marianne.
I'm very sorry I'm late. I have 4 o'clock stuck in my head, so these 3 o'clock meetings, even though it's on my calendar. Anyway, I just want to mention something about the alternates, and that is, I think we could do a better job of encouraging people to use taxis and ride sharing options, like advertising that as an option more, so that people will stop driving their own cars when they just go someplace, so they can be dropped off and picked up.
I'm writing ride sharing and taxis. I think that's part of what drove my idea that we should extend the parking district is we're not banning parking. We're not even making it all that much more difficult, but we are suggesting that the right to park should be paid for. And that would be these two bullets to be edited into a single statement. Henry, I'm going to stop sharing unless somebody wants to read any of this again. You do have a copy. Hi, Marianne. I guess I need some kind of a reaction.
Thank you for working on it.
Thank you.
Also, again, I'm sorry to be late, but my 2 cents, I think Gardner Street should be one way.
All right. That has been mentioned, Marianne. How would we come back? Or are we just going to let the cars pile up in Nantucket Sound?
Well, I was thinking about this as I was hurrying back for this meeting, and I realized in the summertime, I absolutely never go down Gardner because it's just too dangerous. So I find a way around. So can other people.
Good for you. I sail with Nantucket Community Sailing on Jetty's Beach, and I do use Gardner because it's preferable to trying to wait my way through Union Street, which is backed up to the intersection with Washington Street. But yes, it does mean you have to watch out for your rear view mirrors.
Mary
Yeah.
Ann, where do you live, Mary Ann? Where's your house?
I live on Westchester, between New Lane and Brooks Farm Road.
Okay,
Okay.
So I try to walk as much as I can.
but you don't need to take Gardner to get into town.
I
No.
don't need to take Gardner at all. I found my
Right.
ways around it because it scares me to death.
Yeah,
But I would suggest one way going from the monument into town, that would be the direction of the one way.
Yeah,
That's the way
that's been
Chris-
proposed, Marianne. Mickey, I think I'm cutting you off. Your turn.
well, I was just gonna say, living out in the Hummock Pond Road area. I take Gardner Street all the time whenever I go into town, both ways. And yeah, I'm very careful about the mirrors, and sometimes you have to drive up on the sidewalk. So far, I've never been hit or bumped or lost a mirror,
Yeah.
but
The proposal, as I understood it from some years ago, was Gardner Street one way, as Marianne describes, monument to whatever
Lily.
the end is.
If you're going to India Street,
Liberty and North Liberty and Lily Street.
right?
But then to come back around on New Lane.
Yes,
And
that's how I go.
and that would be a substantial roundabout. So more fuel, more cars on New Lane, which right now is a relatively quiet street.
I think that would put a lot of cars into Woodbury Lane too.
Yes, as they tried to cut through.
Yeah.
And since that's a private road, there's no policing on that.
I realize that it's a long way around, but it's not dangerous. That's the difference, I think.
Mhm. Well, we did discuss that more than once, as far as I remember, on the traffic safety committee. And it never got a lot of traction in terms of one way. There was a lot of reluctance to even think, well, not to talk about it, but to really recommend it. So it was discussed, but didn't get very far.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Henry, I'm going to take these comments, edit the document, give it to you for circulation as a back carbon copy of BCC. And if you want, people could react to Henry as a sole email. And that way we would not be discussing it or putting our comments out into the open. And then we should be able to dispose of this very quickly at our next meeting.
That sounds good.
Okay. Now, not quite sure when. I'm not going to do it on the airplane.
That's all right. Any more discussion on circulation? Lee, you did a good job.
Tried to.
Yeah.
It really is a critical issue for our area, and yet there's not a lot of latitude for change. Okay, Henry, it's over to you.
Okay, thank you, Lee. What did I do?
New business, old business, none.
Okay, any other discussion on anything? I'll take that as a no.
So you need to move to adjourn.
Was that Marianne?
Yes,
That's Reagan.
Reagan.
Reagan?
I- 3:53. Is there a second?
Second.
Nikki? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, we're out of here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
folks. Bye-bye.